Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 405 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. Time drifts on by and the end of the summer nectar flow draws ever closer for me. Time for a quick apiary summary and then off to the honey room to look at this year's extraction setup. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Hi everyone, and welcome to the podcast. And wow, what a fantastic week I've had. And of course, it's been another dry one. Not quite so hot this week, which has been a pleasant change, although still warm enough to feel pretty uncomfortable in a bee suit when you're working full tilt to get supers off, ready for extraction, which is exactly how our week has been. It's all changed this year, of course. No more luxuriously spacious accommodation for me. I'm back home in the old honey room, measuring just 3 metres by 3 metres, and pretty much everything's squeezed in to make this season's extraction process as straightforward as possible. I'll talk you through the setup shortly and how we cleared all of the supers ready for the extraction process, but first some apiary notes and an update on the latest queen rearing project. The allotment apiary continues to find forage while most others appear to be drying up. And that's why the supers remain firmly in place here as we begin the removal process at other sites. I'm fairly confident we'll hit our target production numbers this year, so everything's looking great. The allotment apiary may well have to change its name though, as I'm considering reintroducing a couple of beehives to my own allotment for a new series of videos for next year. I'm just waiting on an email from my local allotments officer to confirm it's approved, and then I can start to make some plans. I have had a couple of colonies on my allotment plot previously, tucked away at the very back. This time, though, they will have to be positioned somewhat more centrally, I think, and so this will need some practical work in order to make sure they don't become a nuisance to my neighbours. More on this later if I get the go-ahead. Back at the allotment apiary, sorry if that's all a bit confusing, but here, the garage roof nuke, now a full-size hive in its own right, has done absolutely nothing with the super, at least not as yet, and time is about running out for them to produce any kind of honey crop to prove to me that it was worth all of the effort trying to nurse them through the winter of last year and all of this spring and summer. Herein lies the age-old conundrum. Do you use lots of time and resources on a tiny colony in this way, or is it far better to allow them to dwindle and die, or humanely euthanize them, get them cleaned out, split another strong colony in the spring into that box, and see both split and original colony grow strongly and produce a honey crop almost without fail? It's been a useful experiment to share, but if I'm honest, I probably only worked to keep them alive in order to demonstrate the process on our Patreon videos. The other colonies, the Langstroths first, are doing fine. As I said, they seem to still be able to find a reasonable amount of forage and continue to fill super frames, which is a pleasant surprise. I think it's probably due to the proximity of the river valley and of course a wealth of local gardens with all of the flowers in them. Most of these will be wilting right now under the constraints of a local hose pipe ban, so another week or two will probably do it in terms of nectar. Actually, it rained this morning, that's Saturday, although it didn't rain so hard that I needed to use my windscreen wipers, and it was dry again almost immediately. It was something of a shock to the system not having seen it in the forecast, but honestly, it was nothing at all. And I was actually lighting the smoker when I realised that it was indeed rain. I was over at the Fishing Lakes queen rearing apiary. Oh, before that, just quickly back to the allotment apiaries, there are also a couple of 14 by 12 hives there. These were kept on double brood up to last week, but were split to provide queenless nukes for queen cells. They're back down to single brood boxes now, and with a little luck, full of food and brood, preparing for the months to come. I won't put another box on these as the nectar flow is almost gone, and if anything, they'll become the last splits of the year to create a couple of 6-frame nukes from each colony for my own queen cells. The hives are the Swenty poly boxes that take 10 frames, so they'll each get a couple of frames of foundation should I need to split them, making up 2 6-frame boxes. These could of course be split into 2 3-frame nukes in one box. So, the Fishing Lakes apiary and queen rearing. The last roll of the dice for this year, and it's yielded 10 queen cells. This morning, that's yesterday for those of you listening today, that's Sunday, so sorry, confusing, I know. Anyway, the queen cells are all still intact, all capped and looking really good. According to my timeline, they should be crowned either today, that's Sunday, or tomorrow, Monday. Then they really need to go into queenless nukes pronto. I may well do this today, Sunday, just to make sure I don't mess it up right at the finish, but with time short, I may have to leave it until tomorrow and maybe cross my fingers that I have that timing right. The term crowned means the tip of the queen cell has been thinned to allow the queen the easiest possible escape route out of the queen cell when the time is right. It's a great way of determining at what point the queen cell actually is at. If you see queen cells in your swarmed colony and they have the tip chewed away and thinned, you really need to think about what you're doing with it before it's too late. As this is the last of my queen rearing this year, I'm going to break down the cloakboard hive and use the frames in the top box to make up a few nukes. With the cell cup frame removed, it leaves me with 9 frames, somewhat conveniently, as I can make up 3 3-frame nukes and grab another 3 frames from another colony to fill the extra space in one of those nukes, making up a total of 4 3-frame nukes. Of course, with all of the queen rearing and additional queen cells I've been adding to nukes recently, there has to be some failure. Not every queen is going to make it out of her cell, not every queen will get out to mate and return successfully, and some will fail once they return. It's why we need to produce so many queen cells. Eventually, in a few weeks' time, mid to late August, I'll inspect every colony to check that they have a mated laying queen, and those that do not will be united with another nuke or colony. It's the process of settling everything down for the long road ahead, autumn and winter. So if you do have a colony that appears to be queenless, do think long and hard about what you're going to do with them over the next few weeks. Maybe uniting them is the best way forward. These latest nukes will need all of that time to have the queens emerge, mate and get cracking with egg laying. Excuse the pun. Meanwhile, over at the farm apiary, it was time to get the clearer boards on. Here we had 2 reasons for this. Firstly, I needed to use some of these colonies for nukes to add yet more queen cells to. And secondly, those supers were getting very heavy indeed, and I had decided it was an ideal apiary to start with for our honey extraction for this summer. The clearer boards I use are the rhombus style clearers, but of course there are many different types, and my suggestion to you would be choose one that works for you and stick with it. Once you've picked the one you prefer, watch closely how the bees clear from the supers above it and how quickly they clear. Previously, we've had issues with colonies not clearing from supers because they've been queenless. The overriding principle of using clearer boards being the desire of the workers to return to the lower box or boxes that have their queen in. A queenless colony, not having any pheromones to attract workers down into the space beneath the clearer board. This week, just to confound us, that changed. One of our biggest colonies last week appeared to be about to swarm. They were literally gathering at the entrance in very large numbers and seemed overly excited or agitated. Something was afoot. On inspection, there were sealed queen cells, and as luck would have it, on the very first frame, during a somewhat panicky inspection, I found the queen. Now, luckily, we had a queenless colony nearby, so I popped her in a cage and introduced her into that queenless colony. The original colony, now without their queen, could do nothing but settle back down again and rethink their strategy, build some queen cells, use one of those queen cells, and try again when a virgin queen emerged. Anyway, this colony, now queenless, had a clearer board added, and in conversation with Steph, I suggested we bring the petrol blower over with us because they simply wouldn't clear with their queen missing. Once again, I was wrong, totally and utterly wrong. Every last bee had moved from the supers down into the bottom queenless boxes within 24 hours. Not so the next colony, which happened to be queen right. They had hundreds of bees still in the supers, and thank goodness we did have that petrol blower with us. I don't mind taking a few bees back to the honey room with me, but now that we're working from my home honey room, I need it to be a minimal number of bees, as I don't want to upset our neighbours. It's better to be considerate than just ignore the fact that some people don't want lots of lost workers flying around in their garden, especially in heavily residential areas as I live in. Anyway, we managed to get 27 supers off the colonies from the farm and back to the honey room quickly and safely. Always a relief when the roller shutter door closes and the honey is safely stored ready for extraction. So my honey room set up for this year, as I mentioned, we have a room just 3 metres by 3 metres. The door into that honey room is an old set of UPVC double-glazed French doors, patio doors if you understand what I mean. Stepping into the honey room and looking to the left-hand side, we have the new addition of a sink with hot and cold water. There's a small heater unit beneath the sink and it delivers enough hot water to be able to wash things easily. The sink is large enough to comfortably take a 30-pound bucket. Next to this is a 600mm stainless steel table, and on top of this are the weighing scales. The base plate again being close on 600mm square, the type of scales used to weigh dogs in vets. On top of this is a black gravel tray, the type you can get from a garden centre. This catches wax, propolis and honey that gets scraped from the super frames prior to uncapping. This year we're uncapping using an offset uncapping knife with a coarse serrated edge to both sides. I do have a Carl Fritz brush uncapper and I love it, but it would appear the gremlins have been in and disrupted my uncapper setup of choice. Not so much the uncapper, but the wooden support rails that I made to sit the uncapper on above my Appy melter tank. Before starting to extract, I like to get everything set up and ready to go, all prepared as it were. So all of the equipment was put in place and the support rails dug out of the box, amazingly exactly where I had left them. In placing them on the Appy melter, I discovered that both rails were about 4 inches short. Now I've used these rails for several years now, and on this occasion I found myself staring, dumbfounded at the Appy melter and wooden support rails in total disbelief at the fact that they didn't fit. They were too short, they'd shrunk somehow. After standing there like a fool for several moments, wondering what on earth had happened, I came to the conclusion that for some inexplicable reason I must have taken a saw to them and reduced the length of each by some 4 inches. Honestly, I can't remember or think why on earth I would have done this, but it rendered using the brush uncapper useless for the moment, as I didn't have time to fix this issue. So we're back to the manual uncapping knife. Honestly, it works just fine. I'll pop a link in the notes so you can see what I'm talking about. But a simple serrated bread knife would do just as well. I uncap everything into the Appy Melter, my large heated tank that simply can't be moved out of the honey room, so it has to remain in situ. The extractor is next, making it easy to move the uncapped frames into the extractor without dripping honey everywhere. The extractor is a whisper quiet Lega Flamingo 28 frame motorised extractor. It's a great bit of kit. The motor is controlled manually, and I have the extractor on wheels so that when the unbalanced frames are beginning to extract, the body of the extractor is free to kind of wobble around a bit, and it lessens the strain on the various moving parts. Well, at least that's my hope. Beneath the extractor's tab is the Thomas Cleanomel settling tank. This removes the bulk of any wax cappings or wax from exploded frames. I'm sure some of you will know exactly what I mean. And connected to this is the Lyson honey pump. It's the smaller of the two that they currently sell, and this is more than enough to pump the honey up and into either the 100 kilo settling tank for bottling or into buckets or barrels. Currently, I'm filling a 300 kilogram barrel with our summer honey. The settling tank is full, and once it's had 24 hours to settle out any air bubbles, it will go straight into jars as runny honey. I do also have a strainer on top of the settling tank and above the barrel, just to remove any last bits of debris. Next to the settling tank and barrel is the filling table, a stainless steel 1 metre table, and on this sits the Swenty filling machine and weighing scales for jars. We check the weight of jars throughout the filling process. Not every jar, but maybe 1 in 20. The filling machine is very accurate, and the scales are calibrated and certified as they need to be. The only real chore in all of this is having to move the filled jars out of the honey room and into my office, where I have shelves set up for them. But it does keep the labelling process in one place in my office, and it makes it easy for me to see when I need to fill more jars for sale. And, well, that's it, the extraction process from frame to jar. I do hope you're having a great summer and that your bees have produced a good crop of honey for you this year. Good luck with your extraction process, and if you have any pictures of your setup you'd like to share with me, then please do get in touch. Best to use my email address, info@norfolk-honey.co.uk. Well, that's it for this week. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,700 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for the beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible, no waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2026 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help improve your beekeeping. Check us out online at www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey.